Today we will look at active and passive immunity first. So what is immunity? What an immune response is something that it's a complex series of response of our body that occurs in order to protect us from the pathogen, and that response happens because of there is an entry of a foreign antigen, and it usually involves the activity of white blood cells. Not usually, it always involves the activity of WBCs. So first one is the active immune system. So I've divided into it into three subpoints. First of all, it's an immunity gained when an antigen enters the body. So an antigen must be produced, uh, which involves the production of antibodies itself. So the WBC has to produce antibodies for the antigen. So our this WBC, our white blood cell has to be exposed to to a pathogen, to a foreign antigen, and after it has detected it, it will um, the lymphocytes will produce antibodies and such chemicals. So an immune response occurs, which involves the production of antibodies by plasma cells. So this can happen by two way. First of all, you have to get the infection naturally. So you got a cut, and the pathogen might enter, and that's how you may exposed. And another way of exposing yourself to the antibody, to that pathogen, your lymphocyte to the pathogen, is that you by vaccination you take the dead form of that pathogen, so your lymphocyte can be exposed to that and produce a type of antibody, and hence a memory cell which can produce the plasma cell which produces that antibody when the real or the the actual pathogen enters. So we get this when we are exposed to the actual antigen and our body itself produces the antibodies, and there is also the production of memory cells. So it's a process when a pathogen must be exposed and the antibodies will be produced by our body itself, and it is a long-term protection. Moving on to passive immunity. So there is no antibody production in this type of immunity. So it's immunity gained when no antigen enters the body without an immune response occurring, and antibodies itself are injected. So this pathogen might get destroyed by the uh, antibodies produced, but the lymphocytes don't actually produce these antibodies. These antibodies are injected. So that's passive, and that's not long term because we know there is no memory cells and these plasma cells cannot divide. So that's not going to work for long. So the antibody itself are injected. This is an example of artificial uh, immunity, and this injecting of the antibodies itself, or uh, they also pass from the and I mean mother's milk and also across the placenta when they are not yet born and they're not yet exposed. So moving on, coming to vaccination. So the first step we saw that we might be exposed to the bacteria by we might be given a dead strain of that bacteria, so that the antigen is present but the pathogen is dead. So the lymphocytes will have enough time and it can slowly produce uh, 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 antibodies, plasma cells that can produce the antibodies for this pathogen and take its time without getting harmed. So that's vaccination. So it's giving a vaccine containing antigens for a disease either by injection or by our mouth, So vaccination confers artificial immunity. Yeah. So, but what is a vaccine? So a vaccine is first. I mean, so a vaccine contains a dead strain, as I said earlier. So let's look into it further. So when vaccine is first injected, a primary response is occurred. A primary response occurs, and during this time, memory cells and their counterparts are created. So what I meant by this was that a plasma cell is created, and along with this, a memory cell is also created. So that if the plasma cell dies, the memory can again further divide if we are actually infected. So before this, there was not enough memory cells to respond, was low. So in the second time, you will have enough memory cells, so the response will be fast. So when actual response, the pathogen enters, the second immune response occurs, and there will be now many memory cells which will quickly multiply and kill the pathogen. So that's all for immunity, active and passive.